There's video of Tim Walz doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Exact same thing, and
Yes.
he said, of course, it's a Nazi salute. He said that.
Right.
We spent 3 days debating, having them trying to debate.
I'm going to make note of this. You are not getting off the hook at the next election if you vote no on this. You are not getting off the hook about us coming out there and making the case that 92% of people, and I don't even care in the most conservative of districts, it's well over 60% of people know this.
At first it looked like nothing. Just another clip, another political moment that should have faded quietly into the background. But something about it didn't sit right. Once you noticed it, you couldn't unsee it. The reason this moment lingered wasn't outrage or theatrics. It was discomfort. The kind that creeps in slowly when a narrative you've accepted suddenly feels off.
Forward to CNN's apology to Nick Shirley because Tim Walz just ended his campaign for re-election as Minnesota governor because of this cumulative reporting.
Now we hear more political rhetoric. Enough. Enough is enough. And so to Minnesotans, don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the insurrection.
There was video of Tim Walz doing the exact same thing others had been criticized for. Same gesture. Same context. No ambiguity. And yet, when it was convenient, it was openly acknowledged as a salute. For 3 days, people tried to argue around it instead of through it. That's usually the first sign something's wrong.
No. The video of him taking down the Minnesota flag and he replaced it with the new flag that looks a lot like the Somali flag. Minnesota has a huge population of Somalis in it.
Oh, wait a minute.
So he gets the flag, picks it up, moves it out of the way, and replaces it. Look at this.
There, that's better.
Why is that better? We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars that were going somewhere. So people were profiting, people had jobs, and they want to keep all those jobs.
Do you have any doubt that Tim Walz knew about this fraud as it was occurring?
They want to keep that money flowing, even the bullshit money, as much as they can. Court orders, and there's lawsuits. So
What should have been forgotten instead became unavoidable because something slipped through the cracks. Not yelling. Not a viral meltdown. Just a quiet realization that the explanation didn't match the action. And when reality and narrative stop lining up, tension fills the room, even when no one raises their voice.
Minnesota are not going particularly well. Tim Walz has announced he's not going to run for re-election. And now we're learning, and DHS has swarmed 2,000 agents into Minneapolis to try to find out what's happening at these daycare centers and elsewhere, whether and how bad the fraud is. And then our pal Rich McHugh over at News Nation was just calling attention to this morning.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly didn't attack Tim Walz head-on. That would have been easy to dismiss. Instead, they treated him seriously. They slowed the conversation down, asked follow-ups, and let silence do the work. That approach is far more dangerous to polished political images than outrage ever could be.
politicians are being pressured to try to keep a lot of the spending.
Walz and Ellison were protecting fraudsters instead of investigating them. No coincidence that this is occurring largely in the Somali community.
Because a lot of the spending is all shenanigans. It's moving around to thousands of different NGOs.
Walz made a sanctuary state. He gave free healthcare, free college, and free licenses to illegals. And Walz looked the other way when Somali immigrants.
Then came the clip that made people stop scrolling. Walz removing the Minnesota state flag and replacing it with a new one that many noticed resembled the Somali flag. He smiled and said, "There. That's better." The question no one could answer was simple. Better how and for whom?
And if this is such a made-up scandal that never happened, CNN, why did Tim Walz just announce he's not running for governor again? I'll let you hear him explain it in part right here. This just happened.
I don't want to mince words here. Donald Trump and his allies in Washington and in St. Paul and online want to make our state a colder, meaner place. They want to poison our people against each other by attacking our neighbors. And ultimately, they want to take away much of what makes Minnesota the best place in the country to.
The conversation shifted from symbolism to numbers. Billions of dollars. Programs. Grants. Oversight failures. Jobs created around spending that no one seemed eager to audit too closely. When money keeps flowing, accountability tends to slow down. And that's when questions start getting uncomfortable.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who was running for vice president.
I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful.
They just passed something in Minnesota where illegal immigrants are allowed to have driver's licenses and vote, which is kind of crazy.
And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful.
A lot of the reason for wanting an open border is congressional seats.
So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence.
Because one of the things about when you do a census, it doesn't count how many people are citizens, it counts how many people. And so you can get extra congressional seats if you have more illegal immigrants in your city.
Modern politics runs on comfort. Leaders are rewarded for sounding empathetic, not for producing measurable results. Walz's image as the calm Midwestern adult worked perfectly, as long as no one pressed too hard. The moment scrutiny arrived, the tone stayed polite, but the shield cracked.
Okay, this is yet another problem for Minnesota and Tim Walz. This is not the daycare. This is yet another problem. Behavioral health and substance abuse centers, where the own Minnesota auditor is saying, and this is in the write-up of it, you fabricated documentation to try to satisfy my audit. You backdated documents. You came up with false justifications for spending that were bullshit. And this is all taxpayer money.
Daycares, behavioral health centers, audits citing fabricated documents and backdated justifications. This wasn't one isolated issue, it was a pattern. And patterns are hard to wave away as bad luck or partisan attacks, especially when they involve taxpayer money.
Changed the Minnesota state flag to make it look like a Somali flag. You haven't seen that?
Donald Trump's calling our Somali neighbors garbage and the state of Minnesota a hellhole, I'm assuming is unprecedented for a United States president.
Minnesota has a huge population of Somalis in it.
We've got little children going to school today who their president called them garbage.
That stuff scares the fuck out of people.
Demonizing the entire group of people by their race and their ethnicity, a very group of people who contribute to the vitality, economic, cultural of this state, is something I was hoping we'd never have to see.
Instead of answering questions directly, critics were told they were being mean, divisive, or dangerous. That's usually what happens when debate shifts from outcomes to intentions. When asking questions becomes the offense, it's not confidence, it's anxiety.
It's amazing this guy was like within a breath of the vice presidency.
Which means you're a heartbeat away from the presidency.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this was the one decision Kamala Harris made on her gut, on gut instinct. That's what she said. She interviewed him and she just knew Tim Walz was right for the job. Oh my God. So here's the deal.
Walz presented himself as empathetic and pragmatic. But Rogan and Kelly focused on outcomes, not branding. Compassionate language doesn't excuse failed execution. And when results don't match rhetoric, even the friendliest image starts to feel like marketing.
Favorites was that Tim Walz tried to claim that his wife got pregnant through in vitro fertilization, and she said that's not true. So he lied about that.
Some of you might have heard this. This is very personal for my wife and I. When Gwen and I decided to have children, we went through years of fertility treatments. And I remember each night praying that the call was going to come and it was going to be good news. The phone would ring, tenseness in my stomach, and then the agony when you heard the treatments hadn't worked.
The First Lady of Minnesota, Gwen Walz, revealed that she underwent a different fertility treatment.
Then came the personal credibility issues. Claims about military service, coaching roles, being present at historic events. Even deeply personal stories, later contradicted publicly. Any one of these might be dismissed. Together, they form a credibility problem that no speech can fix.
So I've decided to step out of this race, and I'll let others worry about the election while I focus on the work that's in front of me for the next year.
What is he going to turn into? Is he going to turn into
pray.
Batman now? He's going to be a private citizen seeking out fraud and avenging wrongs. What's he even talking about?
Right. So he says, I can't devote any time away from focusing on the criminals who prey on our generosity. Now, literally, he was just calling those of us who are pointing at the Somali community within Minnesota.
When Walz announced he wouldn't run for re-election, the explanation blamed political toxicity and Donald Trump. But timing matters. So does context. If nothing was wrong, why now? Exiting the race didn't end the questions, it amplified them.
dissemination.
What a weird guy he was.
His wife had to come out and say he was lying. That guy lied about everything. He lied about being a head coach. He was an assistant coach. Lied about his military rank. Lied about whether or not he served in a war.
I criticized his lying about his own record, okay? This is a guy who was captured on video saying, I carried a gun in war. He never went to war.
Lied about whether or not he was in Tiananmen Square. Lies about it.
There was no takedown, no mic drop. Just a slow realization. Rogan and Kelly didn't tell listeners what to think. They showed them how to notice. And once people start connecting dots instead of consuming sound bites, narratives lose their grip.
So Tim Walz is out there trying to blame his, I'm not going to run for re-election, literally on Donald Trump and his meanness. And I'll play you the soundbite. He tried to pivot to January 6th as some sort of relevant thing when defending his decision. And it appears that there is fraud rampant in virtually every organization under Tim Walz's control, Mark.
He better hope that the investigative reporting bandwidth of the state is filled up with other things, because even though he's not running for election.
This moment mattered not because it was loud, but because it was calm. Curiosity replaced outrage. Reflection replaced slogans. And once you see the gap between words and results, politics sounds different forever. That's the real punchline, how little effort it took once someone stopped playing along.